It's not really unknown for first-time directors to make really good films first time out of the gate. Orson Welles did it in 1939 with Citizen Kane, and in 1955 Charles Lawton made his only film as a director, Night of the Hunter, and it's a masterpiece. The Coen Brothers also did this in 1984 with their first movie, Blood Simple, and there's a good backstory to this one. Joel and Ethan Coen did something really interesting when they were making Blood Simple. They crowdfunded the movie before there was an internet. What they did was they made a 2-minute sizzle reel, an investor's reel, and showed it around to various people who thought about investing in their movie. They did this for about a year before they got the $750,000 together they needed to make the film. And then they made the film. They did get some assistance from Sam Raimi, who was a friend of theirs, but for the most part they crowdsourced it. So good on them. People say it's a neo-noir film, but for me it's kind of a cross between a film noir and a horror film. It has a little bit of both in it, and it works really well. The story is simple and pretty much it's a four-hander. The first character, played by Dan Hedaya, is Julian Marty. He runs a bar in southern Texas. His young wife Abby, played by Frances McDormand, leaves him and starts a relationship with one of the bartenders, Ray, played by John Getz. Julian is not happy about this. He's an early adopter of toxic masculinity. Julian hires a private eye called Visa, played by Emmet Walsh, to find out whether Ray's having a relationship with Abby. He does find that out, and when Julian is given the evidence, he decides to get Visa to kill them. He offers him $10,000 to kill Ray. But Visa has his own agenda. He really doesn't quite do what Julian wants. The lovely thing about this film is the script had a long lead time, so they just got it right. Every male character in this movie makes bad decisions based on insufficient information. They think something's one thing when it's actually another. They make mistakes. They leave things behind. Visa leaves his cigarette lighter behind at Julian's desk in his office, and that then leads to some complications there. Things don't happen in a way you expect in this movie. It throws twists at us a lot. At the start we get the voiceover by Visa, but the voiceover is kind of misleading as well. We see Ray and Abby driving through the rain and kind of starting their relationship, and then as a backstory we get the story of Julian and Visa. So the structure's a little complex, but there's a pretty straight through line there. There are some really bold scenes and beautifully shot scenes in this film. There's a scene in a field where somebody is about to bury somebody else, which is done masterfully and has a really nice payoff the next morning. There are a couple of other scenes where the tension is ramped up by the dialogue, which works really well for me. I love that kind of thing where it's kind of like the start of Inglourious Basterds, the Tarantino movie, where that dialogue between the farmer and the Christoph Waltz character just ramps up the tension using words and dialogue. I just love that kind of stuff in movies, and this one does it really well. There's also a fantastic climax which takes place basically in 2 rooms, but is filmed incredibly well. It's visually stunning. The action doesn't go the places you think the action's going to go, and it just pays off beautifully right at the last moment of the film. These guys knew what they were doing at the time. They didn't know too much about the technology of film at the time. The cinematographer Barry Sonnenfeld said that they didn't know how to turn on a 35mm camera. They storyboarded the plot, they knew certain things they wanted to have in it, and they nailed it. So in a sense, the fact that it took them a year to get the money to make the film, and then there was a year in post-production editing and doing all that stuff, really made a stronger film because they had time to think things through and to get details right. That's one of the things, if you're rushing a film into production, there's a chance you're going to get things wrong, but where of necessity you're taking a long time to do it, it really does add a depth and a complexity and a sense that everything's been thought out really well to a film, and Blood Simple does that. The Coen Brothers, of course, Joel and Ethan, have gone on to great success since then with so many films. Big Lebowski, Miller's Crossing, Hail Caesar I'm a big fan of because it's about Hollywood and I'm always a fan of. movies that take the piss out of Hollywood. But Blood Simple, going back to their first movie, was a real surprise for me. Previously, I'd only seen it on VHS back in the day. It's not the same experience seeing it in crisp definition on a widescreen DVD quality, actually Blu-ray quality in this case, compared to seeing it originally on a CRT TV in a VHS tape. There's just such a difference there, and there are details you pick up watching it in high definition that you didn't pick up watching it originally on VHS, which I know there are a lot of people out there that are fans of VHS. I'm kind of a fan of VHS movies in the sense the movies that came out and I first saw it on VHS. Big fan of that stuff. But seeing them again as clearly as they were meant to be shown does enhance the experience. I saw this one once before I watched it the other day, and I'd forgotten a lot of the plot points. I knew there was some murders in there and things like that. I knew it was Frances McDormand's first movie, and she is fantastic in it. Dan Hedaya is great in it. Emmet Walsh is terrific. He said after he made this film, he could charge 4 times as much for getting into a movie after people saw Blood Simple. So it helped his career a lot as well. In fact, he turned up in a minor role in Knives Out just last year. So his career definitely has kicked on. So if you haven't seen Blood Simple and you're a fan of the Coen Brothers, or even just a fan of neo-noir films and kind of horror-y movies and crime films, you should definitely check this one out. It is worth the time, and it does show that people with imagination and with the right kind of attitude can do amazing things on a very small budget. This movie doesn't have any fancy special effects on it. It's got a few practical effects which are there of necessity, but for the most part they made a virtue out of the lack of budget. And so Blood Simple is, for me, probably one of my best rewatches so far this year, and that's saying something. So thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please think about subscribing and leave a comment and tell me what you think of Blood Simple, and also what your favorite Coen Brothers movie is. I know there are so many people that love Big Lebowski, and I love it myself, but going back to their original film was a really enjoyable experience for me, and I did like it. I'll see you next time.